Hey guys, today we're going to be looking in our first packet in Chapter 2, Descriptive Statistics, Lesson 2.2, which is just called More Graphs. So we're going to see some different types of graphs today, and we're going to do half the lesson now and then half the lesson next class. So the first thing we want to keep in mind is that you always want to label your graphs. Okay, pet ownership. And then we've got our key here of what our different colors mean. Nicest fruit. We have our number of people, our types of fruit, height of a blackberry tree. This is the height, their frequency. We always want to label our graphs. So we're going to look at ways to represent qualitative data. What is your favorite social media choice? So in class, we made a list of some of what the favorite apps might be, took a guess of what might be your favorite. And so here's sample data. So some top apps were TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And some sample data for the frequencies were 5 people's favorite app was TikTok, 7 for Snapchat, 3 for Instagram, 4 for Twitter, and 4 for YouTube. So that gives us a sample size of 23. So a sample size of 23. So let's find our relative frequencies. You do your frequency divided by your sample size. So for TikTok, 5 divided by 23 gives us 0.22, or about 22%. 7 divided by 23 gives us about 30%. 3 divided by 23 gives us about 13%. And 4 divided by 23 for both of those last ones gives us about 17%. Okay, so there is our frequency and relative frequency for favorite social media apps. So this will allow us to make our next 2 graphs. First, we're going to look at a bar graph. This is a graph in which the height of each bar represents the frequency or relative frequency of whatever you're talking about. Okay, just like our nicest fruit down in the corner, the height of each bar tells you how many people think that's the nicest fruit. There's a special type of bar graph called a Pareto graph. This is a bar graph where the bars are in order of decreasing height. This means it goes from the highest, the greatest, to the lowest, the least. So we're going to use our social media data to create our bar graph. So our different types of social media were TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And then along our vertical axis, we're going to label our frequencies. So our highest frequency was 7. So we are going to, let's just make this up to 8 to give us a little buffer. 4. Okay. Oops. Okay, so TikTok had 5. So we're going to draw our first bar for TikTok. And it's going to go all the way up to the 5. So when we did histograms in our last lesson, the bars had to touch. But for bar graphs, we want the bars to be separate, like in that nicest fruit example. Snapchat was 7 people, so we'll go all the way up here to 7. Again, notice the bars aren't touching. And then for Instagram, we had 3, I believe. And for both Twitter and YouTube, we had 4. So we draw them up to 4. And there we go, we've created a bar chart from our data of your favorite social media. Okay. Then we're going to look at a pie chart. A pie chart is a circle divided into sectors that represent categories. The area of each sector is proportional to the frequency of each category. Okay, that just means that if there's more people that like Snapchat than like YouTube, then Snapchat is going to take up a bigger section of the circle than YouTube will. You're going to use your relative frequency, that percentage, that'll tell you what percent of the circle will be taken up by each category. So let's use our data to complete our pie chart. So we have our 5 different categories. We have TikTok, we have Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. So it can be kind of hard to draw a pie chart by hand because it's hard to tell what 13% of the circle would be, which we would need to know to make our Instagram piece. So we just try our best. So I like to start with the biggest one. That's Snapchat, 30%. So we know that 30% is going to be just a little bit bigger than 1/4 of the circle. So I'm going to start here, go just a little bit bigger than 1/4. And here's our Snapchat. The next biggest one would be TikTok, 22%. We know that TikTok and Snapchat together would then be just a tiny bit over half. So if I just do that, we're just a tiny bit over half of the circle. Twitter and YouTube are the same percentage. So if I find Instagram, find that 13%-ish, then I can take whatever's left over and cut it in half and have my Twitter and my YouTube. So Instagram, 13%. That's about 1/8 of the circle. So let's try about here. And that would be our Instagram. And then we can break that in half for our Twitter and our YouTube. So it's not going to be perfect because it's really hard to tell what 30% is on its own, but it makes a pretty good representation. We can see that Snapchat is the biggest, followed very closely by TikTok, and then Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, they're all fairly close as well. We're going to use technology later on to make graphs, and there you'll really get to see that preciseness of the percentages. Our last type of graph we're going to talk about for this part of 2.2 is a stem and leaf plot. And we are going to use some quantitative data, which is how many texts did you send in a day. 50 students were asked how many texts they sent yesterday during school, and here is the data. So a stem and leaf plot, each number is separated into a stem and a leaf. It is very similar to a histogram in how they're grouped, because the stems kind of become our classes. The ones digit is the leaf. You can see down here is our leaf. All of these are our ones digits. And then the tens or hundreds digits are the stems. And the stems you can see are over here. And an important thing about stem and leaf plots are that they must have a key. So we can see our key up top. It grabs that 2 and that 6, and that becomes 26, because that 2 is the stem, which is the tens place, so that makes it 20. The 6 is the leaf, it's that ones place, so it becomes 26. So we're going to take our data from above, and we are going to create a stem and leaf plot. So to do that, all we have to do is first draw our line that's going to separate our stems and our leaves. And we need to figure out where our stems are going to start. So if you look at your data, you can see that your lowest number is 78. So that's where we're going to start, is with that 7. And it goes all the way up to 159. So we're going to list all of our stems in between 70 and 150. Even if we're not going to use some of these stems, we still need to list them out so that we don't have skewed data. And then we go through all of our lists and we find our leaves that go with each of our stems. So there's only one number in the 70s, that's 78. So we list its 8. And there we have the 7 in the leaf, the 10 spot, and an 8 in the ones. It makes 78. There's no numbers in the 80s or 90s, so we leave those stems blank. We leave it without leaves. And then there's about 5 numbers that are between 100 and 109. And we want to make sure we list our leaves in order. So we have 105, so we write 5. Then we have 108. And then we have 3 109s. So we list out 3 different 9s to show that there are 3 109s. Okay, we look at our 110s. There's quite a few. And we want to catch them in order. So we have 3 112, so we're going to list out 3 2s. 113, 114, 116, and 117. And then 3 118s and 3 119s. So if you want to pause the video here and go and fill out the rest of your stem and leaf plot, go ahead and do that and come back and you can check yourself. Okay, hopefully you got a chance to try and fill out some of the data. One thing I want to talk about is that there was 130 and 140 as our data points. So notice that we do put in those zeros there as our leaves, because those are ones places. Even though they're zeros, they still stand in for a ones place. So make sure if you have that 130, that 140, a 70, a 90, a 50, make sure you put that zero in as your leaf. So take a look here, make sure that all of it matches. That's how we broke down our data. And there is one thing that we're still missing from the stem and leaf plot, and it is a key. To make a key, all you want to do is pick one of the values in your table or in your stem and leaf plot. So let's do 124. And we just want to make a mini representation of what 124 looks like. So it has a little line. Our stem would be 12 and our leaf would be 4. And right there is 124, and that just tells people how they can read your graph. Okay, let's answer some questions about our stem and leaf plot. The first one is, what are the advantages of using a stem and leaf plot? One of them is that it is easy to see shape and show outliers.